Thank you for the introduction, and I'm grateful to present here at this opportunity at the Green Future Conference in Split, which is a very nice city I've never visited before. And I'm wearing a white shirt because I was told to wear a white shirt in Split. So I'm grateful to present sustainability at Bosch. We are a green, sustainable company and a case study. So just a minute. It worked. Exactly. Let me start with a statement from our responsible member of the board, Phyllis Albrecht. She's responsible for sustainability and EHS, as we call it at Bosch. And she said, sustainability is an integral part of our company culture because it's the people at Bosch who turn abstract goals into measurable achievements. And I want to present you some of the achievements we had recently. But first of all, I would like to tell you a little bit about the framework and the setup we've chosen to get to these achievements. So our sustainability rating, or the sustainability commitment, better to say, is well recognized externally. We are starting from the bottom line. We publish a Bosch sustainability report. And this is according to the GRI standards. And following these international guidelines, we have selected performance indicators and statements which are externally audited. Currently, this is done by Ernst & Young for some of these performance indicators. So based on this report, we receive an external rating, and we are rated by the Carbon Disclosure Project for the climate score with A, which is our rating, which is in the top 3% of our peer group, which is, I think, quite excellent for that understanding. For water, we are rated with B, which is still very good. And ISS ESG, we got a prime rating. With our efforts, we are supporting the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we are a member of the Science Based Targets Initiative, which was mentioned before. So what is the framework? We have set up a sustainability target vision, or how we call it is New Dimensions Sustainability 2025. This target vision describes 6 fundamental dimensions, which are climate action, water, circular economy, diversity, human rights, and health. These dimensions are derived from the megatrends affecting our company and the findings of our external and internal materiality analysis. And these dimensions are setting the framework for our actions. In more detail, I hope you can read it. Each dimension has 2 focus activities with clearly defined midterm targets. For climate, the focus activities are reducing CO2 emissions, and the second one is energy efficiency and renewable energy. For water, it's water scarcity and water quality. Why I'm referring to water here as well? For our understanding, water scarcity is often a consequence of climate change, or even in most cases. For the other dimensions, I will not go into detail here. But all these activities have clearly defined targets. I'll explain on my next slide. So what do we mean by reducing CO2 emissions? For us, being carbon neutral since 2020, it means operating carbon neutral in scope 1 and 2, was what was introduced before, and continuously improving the mix of measures, as we call it, or the mix of levers internally, as well as lowering our absolute scope 3 emissions by 15% by 2030. I will explain that in detail a little bit later. For energy efficiency and renewable energy, there are clearly defined targets by 2030 with figures behind that. And they are supported by a dedicated budget which is coming from central, and our plants can apply for that, or our sites. So for water scarcity, we want to reduce the water withdrawal in water scarcity areas at our locations there by 25% by 2025. And all these targets are corresponding to Sustainable Development Goals, which are stated on the right. Now let's have a closer look at climate. So climate change is one of the biggest challenges facing humanity, or facing our planet and human mankind. And stopping it is a task for society as a whole. Understanding this, we started our project Carbon Neutrality, and we as a company have been carbon neutral in Scope 1 and 2 worldwide with about 400,000 employees and more than 400 locations since 2020. And we've been the first global enterprise, industrial enterprise to achieve this. How did we make this? Just to explain this picture from the center to the outside, let's say it this way. Since 2020, we are carbon neutral with more than our 400 locations in Scope 1 and 2. And this has been approved by an independent auditing company, by Ernst & Young, and officially confirmed, what we are proud of. I can't hide it, sorry for that. At the same time, we are broadening the focus of our activity to also reduce emissions produced outside our sphere of influence, which we call Scope 3. We want to reduce these upstream and downstream emissions by 15% in absolute terms by 2030. To achieve carbon neutrality in Scope 1 and 2, we have defined 4 levers, or 4 types for our mix of measures. And these measures are improving energy efficiency, generating more energy from renewable sources, expanding the purchase of green electricity where available, and, as a last resort, offsetting unavoidable CO2 emissions with carbon credits. We've had a lecture on that, touching that topic earlier. Having successfully reached carbon neutrality in Scope 1 and 2 in 2020, we want to further optimize the mix of our levers to further reduce climate impact. Let's demonstrate this by some facts and figures. The CO2 emissions of the Bosch Group in 2018 have been in total 3.3 million tons of CO2. By 2020, we've been carbon neutral, it was 0. And what about the 4 levels behind that? So there's a level for energy efficiency and energy efficiency projects in our plants and sites. And we have the goal to achieve by these projects 1.7 terawatt hours of energy by 2030. The goal achievement currently is 1/3, so still we have time, but we want to move ahead as fast as we can. The second lever has, we name it internally New Clean Power, but this is the introduction of renewable energies on our sites. So we have a clear goal for in-house production of 400 gigawatt hours per year by 2030. And there's a goal for using green energy. We want to have 100% green electricity. What we currently have reached is 89%. In some countries, it's not so easy to purchase green electricity according to our standards. And finally, for level 4, carbon offsetting, we want to continuously reduce the share of carbon offsets so that by 2030, Bosch will only have to use this measure of carbon offsetting to a maximum of 15% of our CO2 emissions from the starting point, which means we want to reduce our CO2 emissions to be offsetted by 0.5 or to 0.5 million tons. In 2021, we reached 0.9 million tons. So we are basically on a good track here. But let's present some examples how we do this. This achievement is done by a full bundle of measures, of different measures at different sites in our international network. There is no silver bullet. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. We have many different plants with different products, so this is a little bit of challenge, but anyhow, we have a good international network learning from each other. So, for example, in Mexico, most of our electricity demand is covered through exclusive sourcing of renewable energy. You can see a picture of the wind farm in Juarez. And this was done together with the project development of this wind farm, supporting them by a contract and by a clear agreement how much electricity at which price we will purchase from them. The plant in Charleston, second example, has reduced the energy consumption by 1/3 based on energy management and trainings of the employees. And how to introduce or how to reduce energy consumption by energy management. The first step is you have to start with measurements. You have to measure in detail your energy consumption, maybe on a line level or on a machine level. It depends on the significance. And measurements and then data analysis and improvements are the consecutive steps. By the way, measurements. At the exhibition booth, there are Bosch colleagues available, which are presenting a very nice gadget for measurements of air quality in cities. Maybe you want to have a look at that later. So, in India, for example, we have a photovoltaics installation in Bidadi, which is covering currently 30% of the electricity demand of the site. And finally, we have a nice example from France, Rodez. We have a biomass heat plant there, which is using wood chips from local certified forestry, reducing the CO2 by 600 tons per year. So, but this have been basically examples for scope 1 and 2. Let's go to climate action across the value chain, or scope 3. As mentioned before, we want to shape climate action beyond our sphere of influence, which is scope 1 and 2, and beyond is scope 3. And also systematically reduce the upstream and downstream emissions. So, to the side of our suppliers and to the side of our customers, so to say. And we agreed with SBTi, or we have a confirmed target by SBTi for scope 3 as we have for scope 1 and 2, that we will reduce our scope 3 emissions by 15% by 2030. And this was confirmed and is by SBTi and is in full accordance with the 1.5 degrees centigrade global warming target. We are the first automotive supplier who did that in this context. Now, this minus 50% might sound a little bit small, but what you have to understand is that for the major producing companies, the scope 3 emissions are, let's say, 2 orders of magnitude higher than the scope 1 and 2 emissions. So these are the emissions which are basically coming, in our case, from the use of our product sold. So at our customers, using electricity or using even a fuel engine. But anyhow, we will reduce this by 15% till 2030, in accordance with the SBTi targets. So let's come to the other topic, because as mentioned, for our understanding, water and water scarcity is closely related to climate change. If you look at the scenarios the WWF is presenting, we will have water scarcity in more and more countries in near future. Even in countries like Germany, where we didn't experience that before, but we had some summers where we really experienced it. And people have been forbidden to fill their pools. So, for water, one of the focus activities is therefore counteracting water scarcity by having a conscientious use of water in our plants. We currently have 56 sites which are located in water scarcity areas. Most of them are located in China and India. A few of them are located in the US or Mexico. And even we have some in Europe, Turkey and Italy, and one location in Dubai. And here, the target is, we want to reduce the water consumption or water withdrawal by 25% by 2025. Since starting the program, more than 200 projects have been implemented at these sites. And what we are currently saving by these projects implemented there is approximately 500,000 cubic meters per year. And therefore, we have a goal achievement currently of 21%. So there's still some time to go, but we are confident to fulfill our target. For further information on our program and how we act and more examples and more figures, may I kindly refer you to our sustainability report. This is published in accordance to the GRI standards, and parts of it have been externally audited by Ernst & Young. And this report is available at sustainability.bosch.com. Or if you have questions, I will be later on at the Bosch stand over there in the exhibition hall. Thank you for your attention.